Happy New Year. Welcome to A Day with Dre, podcast hosted by yours truly, Dre. I want to apologize for the break between this and the last episode. There has been a lot going on in my life, and I know we all got shit going on in our personal lives, but between, health issues and etc., which we'll get into in a moment, I just wanted to apologize for the little hiatus I was on between physical health, mental health, etc. I just didn't have the energy to record. But Happy New Year. It's 2025. There were some big things expected by 2025. It looks like we didn't get some, but we got some of the others. I'm excited to talk about some of the things that have changed in my life, and just really catch up and cover, because last time we talked, it was, I think, the day after the election, and obviously a lot's changed since then. So, of course, with that election, Donald Trump won, and he didn't disappoint. We'll talk about some of the nice bits, the quotes that we're already getting just a couple days after the election certification, and we're going to talk about some things that in this time I've began to value more personally, and talk about like personal growth and development, and of course, try to laugh and have some fun while we're at it. So, all right, let's get to it. So, again, we're 1 week into 2025, and for real, this has been one of the tougher starts to a new year I've had. So I had knee surgery to end the year. I haven't been walking. I've been on bed rest, couch rest, having a lot of pain because for some reason oral pain meds don't really quite get the job done for me. But I'm certainly doing better than what I was the first few days after surgery, but I got a long way to go. So you'll see that you'll get used to the scruffy look I've got going on, because I can't really stand to do a lot of my grooming right now, and I can't drive to go to the barber, so it might be rough for the first few months of this new year, but we'll see. Before we really get into what's going on with me personally though, of course, let's talk about the news of the day. Just the other day, the election was certified, and so it's official. There was no liberal Jan 6th or anything like that. There was a big snowball fight, I guess, which honestly, that probably is that's probably the liberal equivalent. I'm sure conservatives are probably going around laughing, being like, that's because they are snowflakes, whatever. There was no liberal Jan 6th, so I guess you can put to rest who loses better, because everybody's like, well, when they lose, they burn down cities, but whatever. I don't recall liberals burning down city over an election, but I do remember whatever you want to call them, the super far right did try to break into the they successfully broke into the Capitol building, and a couple police officers died, which what happened to black back the blue, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to get off on some random tangent on that yet, and I already started to. First, let's kind of roll back to the very beginning of the year with, we've got veterans going wild, right? Let's start with what happened in New Orleans, right? Absolutely crazy. So, as a huge football fan myself, I was watching some of the New Year's Six games and waiting for, I believe it was the Sugar Bowl. And then you get the news that the Sugar Bowl is delayed a day because someone rammed their car into people on Bourbon Street. And I don't know if you've been to Bourbon Street in the French Quarter of New Orleans, but you hear that there's a car accident in the French Quarter, you're like, well, I mean, have you been there? It's just people everywhere, walking everywhere, lots of cars trying to get through there. And you don't really think much of it, but then the news starts coming out and you hear 10 people, 14 people, 15 people dead, dozens more injured. And then all of a sudden you're like, what? This obviously isn't like some random car accident. And then pictures and stories start coming out, and there's a guy that Jabbar, I guess is his name, and he's driving this truck full speed into crowds of people with ISIS flags planted on the back of his pickup truck. And they say, and this happened in the early hours of January 1st. And they say About 15 people were killed with dozens more injured. Jabbar had 2 guns on him, died in a shootout with the police, injured 2 police officers. And then they say that this guy's he's a Army veteran with deployments, and he was converted to, Jabbar. You could probably assume that that's an Islamic name, right? But he's converted to ISIS, which is a terrorist organization out of the Middle East that we thought we were done with, and we can get into this at another time, but I would argue that as long as the United States exists, there will always be anti-Western terrorist organizations. It's just a cycle that'll never stop, because we see them as terrorists and they see what we represent as terrorists. And I just say we broadly, as in, like, I'm not like some government official or anything like that, but I just mean the West versus, I guess, the Middle East. So that's whatever. So this guy goes to the Middle East. He gets converted or radicalized, for lack of better terms, to join the Islamic State before the summer. Plants a ISIS flag on the back of his truck. Drives into crowds of hundreds and thousands of people. It's New Year's in New Orleans. It's a party. You got the Sugar Bowl going on down there, so it's just, big tourism, big money going on. And the first thing that happens is people start saying, well, this happened because of Joe Biden's open border policy, which is just insane because the guy's a U.S. vet. Like, this has nothing to do with the border. So already, we're politicizing it into everything in the world is political. So I don't want to say we're politicizing it, because everything is ultimately political. But trying to turn it into a Republican Democrat thing is just ridiculous. But what I think is crazy is this happened as we're swearing in a new president. They, find this ISIS related stuff, whatever. It's a former veteran, or you can't, I guess, former because he's dead, but was a U.S. veteran. It just, I don't want to get into conspiracies, but it almost seems like I just want to be like, to the CIA, like, this is the best you can do. Like, are you just trying to build momentum towards another invasion? Is our economy just secretly actually terrible? So we're preparing for, to get some more boots on the ground somewhere else. So we're just, throwing some underhands, because for some reason and they should all be big deals whenever groups of people die. I'm not trying to minimize life in one group over another, but this is the outrage towards groups of people when you get a bunch of adults partying in New Orleans and unfortunately lost their lives from senseless violence is getting a bigger reaction out of a specific group of the population than when kids get mowed down trying to go get an education. And I know what you're saying. You're thinking, how can you compare these two situations? But I don't know. I think that you can't, if you're going to be moved towards defending the U.S. and responding to terrorism, but we don't even want to talk about domestic terrorism that happens, every 6 weeks in the United States, then I just, again, I don't want to get too caught up in that, but we can go deeper into that at another time. But then, not to be Mr. Jabbar, not to be outdone, another veteran a little further west in Las Vegas rented a Cybertruck and then blew himself up in the Cybertruck outside of a Trump hotel in Las Vegas, which, people are talking about this is symbolic. Is this him saying he hates Trump and blah, 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 blah. But the guy on hand was apparently a registered Republican, whatever. He's a Marine. Used ChatGPT, which is another reason why I'm personally just not a big fan of the expanding of AI. But he used ChatGPT to help plan the attack. Attack used loosely here because nobody was hurt except for himself because he's fucking obliterated. But 37-year-old Marine shot himself in the truck, blew it up. And people are trying to use this to be like, yeah, see, if you would have been in an Accord, then, all that damage would have been done. But look at how strong the Cybertruck is. But yeah, this guy was deployed twice to Afghanistan. He said this was supposed to be a wake-up call for the nation's troubles. I'm really not sure what the wake-up call is, other than we need to do more for our veterans, because obviously a lot of them are sick. Everybody knows that, but people just seem to look over that. But he left notes in his phone, I guess, saying he had to cleanse his mind of the brothers he lost and relieve himself of the burden of lives that he took. Which, this is a hot take, but I actually think this is one of the most normal, not the whole blowing yourself up for symbolism, but losing your mind after being deployed twice and killing a bunch of people is actually a more normal response than coming back from a tour and being completely unfazed. So I guess, they try to turn these people into killing machines, but at the end of the day, they're still people. And this person couldn't live with what he was forced to do on his deployments. With that being said, it's sad and it's tragic. And thankfully, nobody else was hurt. There were a few people that had a few people had minor injuries, but nobody else was hurt fatally or anything like that. Yeah, there was like a lot of ideas or theories that this was some shot at Trump and Elon Musk, but apparently, in one of his notes, he said that the country needed to rally around Elon Musk and I almost said Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So, yeah, that's one day into the new year, and we had some shit going on. So that was pretty wild. As I'm laying on the couch trying to recover from surgery, and I'm like, damn, the football game got moved. It must have been a pretty damn big deal because we love our football here in the U.S. and yeah, I mean, it was a pretty fucking big deal, but rest in peace to those people that died in that senseless act. What's crazy is when I was just in the French Quarter, the hotel I was actually at, like, you can see a lot of that, where that accident was, just from the window of the room I was in. Because I was looking right over Bourbon Street. So, again, you should never lose your life doing stuff that normal people want to do for fun. It's senseless. It's tragic. And again, rest in peace to those people. One crazy thing that comes out of what happened in New Orleans is apparently a mother from Alabama was hit by the attacker's truck and then shot in the attack because there's a bit of a shootout after the truck rammed into people and then got stuck. She had a bullet lodged in her foot, and she's an Amazon employee, and the Amazon denied her leave of absence request. And I didn't think that this a terrorist attack would turn into, like, are we in favor or against unionizing? But holy shit, if there was ever an example of why you need unions, that extra couple dollars out of your paycheck, which honestly it's so sad that you even need a union for something like that, but those extra few dollars out of your paycheck might be worth it because, if you get shot in a fucking terrorist attack, the corporation you work for might say, nope, that is not a reason to have an absence from work. So that, which just like, it makes you understand why this is getting into dangerous territory, but it makes you understand why, what's his name, Luigi or whatever, went and shot the CEO of United Health. And I got to tread lightly because that is a Minnesota company and I am from Minnesota. I am in healthcare and I'm not condoning killing the CEO of a business because you hate the business. But you get injured in a terrorist attack and your job doesn't even let you get time off. And, in Luigi's case, although I apparently grew up a very privileged life, never wanted for anything, and probably never, I read that he had chronic back issues or something like that. But, these companies, that control so much of your life can push you towards radicalization very quickly. Because, to be honest, if I was either fired or had to show up from work after, getting shot and injured in a terrorist attack, and my job just terminated me because I wasn't ready to come back. If I found out that this woman had a response similar, again, not supporting violence, but shit, I would understand. Like, the want to get. I don't even know what to say. That's so crazy to me. And to continue this trend of insane shit that's been happening, I read that. So we're gonna take it back a little bit. We're gonna talk about what happened with the Hurricane Helen or Helene the other day. I think it was just 2 days ago in North Carolina. Let's see if I've got the sound here.
Today's the last day to pay your property bill before it becomes delinquent. Please note that North Carolina law does not permit property tax waivers or exceptions for natural disasters, including Hurricane Helene. For assistance, contact the tax department.
Just a property that you've owned. But even if your property's paid off, you still pay your state, county, city, whatever. You still pay those local property taxes. Property taxes are how they say the libraries stay open, police get paid, schools get funding, etc. So basically the government in North Carolina, in that town where people lost their homes, said that losing your home is no reason to not still pay property taxes on the home that no longer exists. Again, talking about things that might move someone towards radicalization. If I was one of those people, I lost everything. I don't have a home. You could have lost your family as well. So we're talking about, emotional, spiritual, physical connections to that community. And they're like, yeah, but you still owe me $6,000 in property taxes for the quarter for these 6 months or something crazy like that. Honestly, and even if it's just $1, like it's the principle. That's just, I don't know. Like, I understand if someone wanted to make an example out of themselves and sacrifice themselves and do something catastrophic to like I don't know, I'm trying to think of what office it would be at their city hall or something like that. Again, not advocating for it, but it would be the least surprising thing that would happen, because you're telling me I can lose everything in a hurricane, and then you're just like, yeah, but those taxes though. Like, man, this place is it's messed up. It's fucking sad. And I don't see how that is defensible and how anybody would ever side with anything like that. It just honestly fucking makes me sick. Like, just makes me sick. But at least to balance out the insanity with that, I saw that there's a new federal rule that removes medical debt from credit reports. So it's not removing your medical debt. So for everybody's like first of all, medical debt is just insane. And I say that as a physician, but whatever, neither here nor there. And before you get into like, well, doctors are the reasons that medicine costs so much, I think I read something somewhere that less than like 10% or around 10% of medical cost is actually for your providers' salaries. And that's physicians, physician's assistants, nurses, etc. Just before you start getting carried away with that, just make sure you get your facts straight. But anyways, medical debt can't be used against you in a credit report, so you should still be allowed to rent an apartment or try to get a mortgage, or try and buy a car just because you had to have a surprise knee surgery like me or something like that. It shouldn't ruin your financial prospects for everything else you want to do in life. It's not saying that you don't owe money anymore. It's that is not going to be used in your credit report, because that's not a decision that you made. And of course you could say, well, you didn't have to get the healthcare treatment, but come on, like, if you're going to start arguing that type of shit, then like, just first of all, don't even waste your time speaking to me, because you are scum. But again, that's at least a little bit of good news to balance out the insanity that we have been starting this year with. We gotta get to President Trump. All right, or President-elect Trump. The election was certified. Of course, he hit the ground running after the certification with some of his. He's starting off hot with some of these quotes. So one of my favorite ones is that he started with was talking about the Gulf of Mexico. So listen to this.
Vast, a lot of territory. The Gulf of America. What a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
Gulf of America. So there you have it. I'm not gonna lie that I just don't understand whatever. Ultimately, I guess it's not whatever. I guess I learned it as the Gulf of Mexico would always be the Gulf of Mexico. Are we just gonna start printing stuff that says Gulf of America? I don't know. But that's very Trump to say, because what does it matter? It's like we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. It's just another thing that's more than likely not going to happen. But I don't know, whatever. Donald's Donald. But I did get a nice little kick out of that Gulf of Mexico being Gulf of America. So that was just like, and that was honestly just a softball for the stuff we started to get into. So where things started to getting a little more heated was the whole.
Thank you.
Let's get into.
But let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal. So, but can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, we're not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty?
So Trump says we need to take control of the Panama Canal, okay, because we gave the Panama Canal to Panama, but now it's run by China. To be honest, I don't know much about how true that is, but he says it's for our protection. He also says Canada, with economic force, should be the 51st state, and the United States should take over the territory of Greenland, which I believe is owned by Denmark or something like that, which are was a NATO nation. Using force to take the Panama Canal, he said he can't rule out using force to take any of the land that he alluded to against another NATO nation would probably trigger like the official World War III. And yeah, I don't know, not good. You know, people were talking about the economy and how we want cheaper eggs and stuff like that. And you say that's why you voted for him, because you see the price of bread, you see the price of eggs, and we get Panama and Greenland. So yeah, I don't know. They're probably already like, what eggs? So, because it was never about that anyways. But yeah, that's, you know, he is who we thought he was. And yeah, so we'll see. We will see. But then where things really got spicy was in the end when talking about
If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
So if those hostages aren't out by the inauguration day, all hell will break loose in the Middle East, is what President Trump is saying. So for those of you that thought he was anti-war and the peaceful option, this is what's going to stop the genocide. There you have it. All hell will break loose. So apparently the genocide going on right now isn't even bad compared to what he said he's going to bring, just in case you didn't catch that. So looks like we're in for a hell of a year, so buckle up. Yeah, and those aren't my words, those are his words. That's not taken out of context. He's quite literally threatening for all hell to break loose. So yeah, that's straight from the Donald. So yeah, and we're just 7 days into 2025, and we got some quotes and we got some promises, and promises of war, promises of land. I mean, I think getting Greenland would probably, and adding Canada, of course, we'd be bigger than Russia. The little kid aspirations in me will finally be happy. You can, have the biggest country in the world, because, it would just look cool to just see United States be the biggest country. And I swear, I feel like that's what Donald Trump actually thinks, like having the most square miles means something. But I did see someone from Canada say that they would take back Alaska, maybe Minnesota. And as a Minnesotan myself, I say no. No disrespect to Canada, but I don't know. I'm not about to start adding random U's and shit like that to my letters. That ain't happening. So respectfully, I'll stay I'll go down with the ship, but I appreciate it. Plus, y'all got your own stuff to worry about, not just us. A surprise addition to things that were super annoying to start the year, though, is Meta, Mr. Zuckerberg. So take a look at what he had to say.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
So we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X. Now, I don't know how many of you still use X, but X has turned into a disgusting. I mean, it's always been disgusting. Don't get me wrong. That's part of the reason why I love Twitter. But it's like a far right-wing breeding ground, right? So, as you know, if you've listened to me, I'm obviously not right-wing at all. I'm not a liberal either. I'm on the left, but I think liberalism in the US is disgusting, and I don't want to associate myself with that. But if you are on X, you got obviously a right-wing person that owns the site, and Elon Musk, and he is doing what he can to make the site reflect his views more and more. You say something bad enough about him, your account might get nuked. He replies to people. He pushes just nonsense, whether it's like misinformation around medicine, misinformation around political opponents. And then he won't correct himself because it's like, you're the richest man in the world. Who's going to make you? Whatever. And then you have community notes that go in and will, I guess, correct misinformation. But there are no community notes for when he puts misinformation, or people close to him put misinformation. There are no community notes then. Or if it's misinformation in favor of him, there are no community notes then. And looks like Facebook, another billionaire site, and Meta, which is Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, who knows what else is in there. A bunch of shit that apparently I need to get rid of because I unfortunately have a healthy addiction to Twitter, but Facebook can go. Apparently, in the idea of pro-free speech, have you ever been on Facebook? You can go on there and say whatever the hell you want, and nothing is stopping you. And what is with these people and I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg is a right-wing person. Anytime I see someone that's a billionaire, I assume that they just are in nature. But that's not always the case. But bro, people are wild on Facebook. Where is the free speech limited on Facebook? Like, Facebook is the Wild West. But if fact-checking, the thing that gets me here is fact-checking is politically biased. So if facts are politically biased, what does that tell you about the politics that you're believing in? Like, can we critically think if facts favor a political party, whether it's left or right, then that means the opposition is full of shit. And the facts do not defend the things that they have to say. It is so straightforward. And how we just get mad about that, and then we start coming up with terms called alternative facts. Now, of course, you can use data, you can manipulate data and still spread a false concept around data. But if it seems like facts overwhelmingly support one political ideology over another, then I don't know. If I supported a political party and it seemed like the facts were against my political party to the point where people that control social media that 75% of the world uses says that we can't allow fact checking anymore because it's making everything too politically I just don't understand. Facts are manipulating politics, yet the people that are complaining about fact checking run the Oval Office, the Senate. It's obviously not. So I don't know. This is I don't know. This is like fucking what Rage Against the Machine when it's talking about like, they're banning books. They're when they have that line in what is it in Bulls on Parade? It says it used to be the library, now it's just the mind cemetery. Like it's just a bunch of shit that's just used. It's everything's turning into an echo chamber, and how do you escape it? It just makes me want to purge myself of all social media, because now fact checking is also going to be frowned against, or against rules. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's fucking disgusting. It's sad. God bless America. USA. Anyways, I hope those of you that are listening are having a better start to the new year than I am, because maybe I'm just crabby because I can't walk right now. I used to exercise basically every day of the week, and now I can't even walk because of knee surgery. So maybe it's just frustration regarding that. Who knows? Who freaking knows? All right. But yeah, what's been going on with me? So I told you that since we last spoke, I've had knee surgery, tore my ACL, MCL, medial and lateral meniscus with some nerve impingement. Playing basketball, fast break, wet spot, took out my knee, non-contact. My dumbass felt a bunch of stuff shred, but then got up and tried to go down the court. And then I was like, yeah, something is wrong. And because there was a lot wrong. But so that's a huge part of my life. No matter how I'm doing physically, no matter how I'm doing emotionally or mentally, I try to be proud of my physical health and stay in good physical shape. But unfortunately, I'm a little limited with that right now. And that's how I closed out 2024. So physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or whatever, it was a challenging year for me. We know how my dog died, and, personal relationships have changed greatly. I had probably my closest uncle throughout my life pass away, but here I am. I'm still thugging it out. But what I learned from the things that happened in 24 is how I really got back to figuring out what things that I thought should be more important to me, right? So I lived my whole life with certain goals. I wanted to be a D1 athlete. I did that. 2 sports, football, track and field, had to move on. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to become a surgeon. I did all of those things. And I realized that I was trying to achieve things that when I was a kid, and I still do, I have a volatile family. And it was always a source of, I don't know, pain, discomfort, hurt, however you want to put it. So I chase things not related to connections and people and emotions, just things that I could easily check off, that I could do on my own, not need everybody else to come with me, not need anybody else to do them, relatively, right? You always need someone to do something, but I didn't necessarily need family to become a doctor, or at least my biological family, or whatever. You get what I'm saying. But then when I accomplished the last thing, and then I lost my dog, I realized that those personal connections were actually, although I was kind of avoiding them for all that time, once I was achieving everything that I wanted to achieve, and realized that none of it mattered unless I had those people with me. And I think that people that become successful and then have these like bouts with depression and ultimately take their lives, I think they come to that realization much later, that they made all this money, they had all this stuff, and were miserable, were lonely, they didn't feel connected to people. And I think I had a similar realization, and I was definitely not rich or famous or anything like that, but I realized that like I didn't really care about my diploma, and I worked so hard for it. And I don't want to say I don't care about it, but it didn't matter to me. None of that mattered to me as much as the dog I had going through it, because that was love, right? And then I finally realized that shit, to me, that was something that I didn't necessarily have growing up in the proper way. I had, my parents loved me, but it was never expressed. The amount of times between my mom and dad when I was a kid telling me that they love me was very, very limited. And this is me being vulnerable, so like you could say what you want to say about it, but maybe this is helping someone else. But I couldn't feel it because just having, the parents, especially in Black households, well, you got food on the table, a roof over your head, that's love. But that's not enough for people. And I used to think, until I was 30 years old, I used to think that taking care of people in that kind of way was the proper way to show that you loved and care about them. And it took a lot of unlearning. It took months of trying to figure out and understand why people weren't understanding that means you love and appreciate them, because that's the only way I was shown love my entire life. What do words matter? I bought dinner, didn't I? There's food on the table. But I think people need to understand that that's not enough. And I think men, especially, this is something that's especially a problem in the Black community. We need to understand that that is not enough. That is not enough for people. It is not enough to just be like, bills are paid, food's on the table. That kids need to feel it. People need to feel it. Not just your kids, your significant others. You can't just, your significant other needs you to express these things. And that comes with more than just being like, the rent's paid, isn't it? And that's not to minimize that, because I used to think like that. I used to think like, this is paid, this is paid, this is paid. And I don't make a lot of money because I'm just a resident. This is paid, this is paid, this is paid. That should be enough. And I don't know how it took me so long to realize that while that means something, that's not what people actually want. Is a lot easier and it's a lot simpler. They just want to feel the emotion, not just be like, well, I'm sure I'm happy that, because they are happy that they're like financially are taken care of. So again, that was something that in my downtime in therapy, and I know how especially Black men we feel about therapy. I'm glad it's starting to change, but it's not changing fast enough. And I talked with my dad about this, and he's like, shit, everybody needs therapy. And when I heard that man say it, and I saw how he was changing at 50, that let me know that at 30, I need to get with it as well. And unfortunately, I think I've probably lost some relationships with people, with friends, significant others, that if I would have just understood that, it would have been so much different. But honestly, I think it comes down to being afraid. I think you're afraid, when you grow up in these cycles of like, I think my dad and my mom were that way because they grew up in broken homes, which led to me growing up in a broken home. And when you don't grow up in a house with like love and healthy love in any sense, it makes you afraid to show that, because you just think that, what's the point of showing it? I'm just going to get stabbed in the back. But especially for men, that's no way to live. That is no way to live. So that is like my personal testimony to, like, I mentioned that it was emotionally and physically, it's been a hard time, but you gotta grow. You gotta figure out why the times are hard, and use that to grow and do better, and hope that things can get better. And I'm hoping that, like, sometimes you just want to sit and you want to reach out to people that, that were trying to reach you and just couldn't, and you just want to say that you're sorry, and you just did. And the whole time all that was happening, to be honest, like, I just didn't see how limited I was. To this theme of, emotionally maturing, emotionally growing and expanding, I've got a group of friends that I lived with in undergrad, still very close with, and we talk about a lot of this stuff together. And people are we're getting a little older. We're all in our 30s now. People are getting married. Life is changing for the better for a lot of us. But we have this great rift in people in our group who are, we've got a guy that thinks that, that men are always the prize and blah 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 blah. And to be honest, I don't subscribe to any of that type of, I don't really believe in like alpha male, alpha female, alpha beta male. Like, I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. But I was talking about how if women just, knew their role, knew their place, just kind of, one of those kind of ways of thinking. And there are a lot of men that feel that way. There are a lot of women that feel that way. But my issue with that is that traditional way of thinking doesn't work unless you just want to, if you want to have a traditional life, then you need to have a traditional life, but you can't be part-time traditional and part-time modern, right? It doesn't necessarily work like that unless you're both on the same page. You can't be like, well, I have a degree, I'm highly educated. I need a woman that also is highly educated. I need a woman on my level, but then, get insecure if she makes as much money or more money than you do. Like, none of that matters. Like, at least not to me. I can't speak for how other people are, but we always have we have these interesting conversations about that and like love lives, especially from like we got people that are married in our group. And to be honest, it's just I think as a community, as a community especially, we got a lot of work to do regarding being emotional and vulnerable with other people. But I think it's just something as a culture completely that we've lost, and that we definitely need help with regaining, because it seems like it's not just, kids get killed or something like that and people grow emotionally numb to it. But it's not just with tragedy. There's a lot of stuff that people are becoming numb to, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just it's crazy, and it's sad. It's like the soul of our civilization is kind of fading away, and it's crazy. Like, not only are we becoming numb to tragedy, like the New Year's Day tragedy is kind of already fell out of the news cycle, and it's just a week later. But like, there's other just crazy stuff that's going on. Like was there that girl from the UK, Miss Phillips or whatever her name was, that has, multiple instances of sleeping with 100 people in one day? And not only is that insane for her, and I hope that, like, I don't think that is something that any male or female, man or woman, whatever, should ever strive for, because why? Then again, I don't know. Like, I don't control their lives, but also, like, what? Excuse me. But now the goal is like 1,000 or something like that. And for anybody that's like supporting that, not just her, but the people recording it, the people paying for it, like, I don't know. Like, it's just like the soul of, and this isn't me trying to be like I'm morally better than people, but like, people are forgetting that, like, in order to like experience happiness, you got to take a little bit of risk. And I think that's just being reflected in so many ways. Whereas, like they say, in this day and age where it's very easy to meet people, they say like there's the highest percentage of virgins and young adults in recent history. It's like people are just forgetting how to like experience each other and connect with each other. And now it's leading to like this incel movement, and like it's just sad. And now you got people that are worshiping Andrew Tate and from their, would be afraid to talk to anybody in real life, but have the nerve to tell people that aren't in their mind a 10 that they're not worthy of having any standards for themselves. It's a crazy world that we're living in. But yeah, I guess that would be where I leave off today, is we're gonna try and strive to be better every day. But I think it starts with, like, once again, we gotta experience each other and, get back to having like real and not superficial connections. Not because I think that, and I should ask some of my psych friends about this, is that the addiction to attention, and that's coming from social media, is very real. and it is absolutely ruining our society, and it really, it makes me sad. And again, Happy New Year. Again, this is Dre from A Day with Dre. Like, write a review, subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, and let's try to make 2025 a great one and change the vibe that the year is starting with already. All right. Peace.